Hi everybody, it's Miss Nikki and Puss. Say hi, Puss. And we're here for novel engineering. Today we are reading Hansel and Gretel, retold by Roberto Pumini, illustrated by Anna Laura Cantone. How many of you have heard the story of Hansel and Gretel before? Puss, have you heard it before? Okay. Once upon a time, a boy named Hansel and a girl named Gretel lived near a large forest with their father and stepmother. The father was a woodcutter, and they were very poor. The four of them had nothing to eat. One night, the stepmother whispered to the woodcutter, "Husband, you must take the children into the woods and leave them there. They can live on the blueberries that grow there. Then we will have enough bread for ourselves." The father did not want to abandon his children, but the stepmother insisted. So one morning, he took his children into the woods. Hansel, who had overheard his stepmother talking the night before, had filled his pockets with white pebbles. After 5 steps, he dropped one. When they were in the middle of the woods, their father said, "Wait here, I'll be back in a moment." But of course, he didn't come back. The children found their way home, pebble by pebble. When their stepmother saw them, she scowled, but their father was overjoyed that they had returned. Later that night, the stepmother whispered to her husband, "We will all surely starve. It's best for everyone if you leave them behind in the forest." Again, Hansel heard his stepmother's plan. He tried to leave his room to look for more pebbles, but the door was locked. The next morning, the father took his children into the woods again. This time, Hansel dropped breadcrumbs along the way to mark the way home. Once they were deep within the woods, the father said, "Wait here, I'll be back in a moment." But of course, he didn't come back. "We'll just follow the breadcrumbs to find our way back home," said Hansel. But the crumbs had disappeared. They had been carried away by the ants and eaten up by the birds. The children were completely lost, and night was coming. Hansel and Gretel walked and walked all night and into the next day. On the evening of the second day, they saw a little house. When they walked up to it, they realized that it was made of candy. Hungry and tired, they started nibbling on the sugar windows. Suddenly, the door opened, and out came a friendly old woman. Or so they thought. The woman was pleased to see 2 children at her home. "What lovely children!" she cried. "Please come in. The food is even better inside." So Hansel and Gretel went inside. The old woman made a delicious supper for them. Then she gave them a bed to sleep in. But as soon as they were asleep, she grabbed Hansel and locked him in a cage. The old woman was, in fact, an evil witch in disguise. She had lured the 2 children inside with her candy house and her sugar windows. In the morning, the witch said to Gretel, "Go and make a meal for your brother to fatten him up. When he's nice and plump, I'll eat him." Gretel cried and pleaded, but there was nothing she could do. So she made a meal for her brother. As the days went on, Gretel made Hansel meal after meal. Hansel became fatter and fatter, while Gretel had only bread and water to eat. The witch's eyesight was not very good, and she could never tell if Hansel was fat enough to eat. So every day she ordered Hansel, "Stick out your finger so I can feel how plump you've become." Instead, Hansel stuck out a twig. When the witch felt it, she grumbled, "You eat all the time, yet you don't get any fatter." Desperate to plump him up, she had Gretel feed him more and more and more food. A few weeks later, the witch felt the twig again and became impatient. "That's it," she said. "Whether you are fat or thin, I'm going to eat you right now. Light the fire, Gretel." The little girl cried and cried as she lit the fire. "Have you lit the fire yet, Gretel?" screeched the witch. "No," cried Gretel. "The old rusty door won't open." "Then get out of the way. I'll open it myself," yelled the angry witch. But as soon as she opened the door, Gretel shoved the witch into the oven and trapped her inside forever. Gretel opened the cage and let Hansel out. The boy had become as plump as a piglet. Hansel and Gretel hugged each other, and then they gathered up all the witch's treasures and went back to the forest. They walked and walked until they found a path they recognized, and soon they had found their way home. The two children hid outside the house, worried that their stepmother would see them. But their father had felt so guilty for listening to her and abandoning his children that he had sent her away. When Hansel and Gretel realized that their stepmother was gone forever, they ran to meet their father. The woodcutter hugged and kissed his children over and over again, and the three of them went on to live rich and happy lives. The end. What a great story that was.
Thank you, Miss Nikki, for that phenomenal fairy tale. Boys and girls, do you remember how Hansel and Gretel got away from the witch? They locked her in the oven and ran away. Miss Nikki and I were wondering, instead of pushing her in the oven, how else could Hansel and Gretel have escaped? Could they have waited until she fell asleep? Maybe assemble something to trick the witch. Inside your quest kit, there are some novel engineering supplies. Using only those supplies, see what you could build to protect.
Be sure to post photos of your creations in the comments below or text us at 615-930-0948. Thanks for watching. Say bye.